Now, I know a lot of you who clicked on this video want to know the answer to the question, will this recession be worse than the Great Recession of 2008? And we will get to that, but we need a little bit of background first. You've heard it before, a huge bubble burst in 2008 that ricocheted all around the economy and caused a deep recession. We began borrowing a lot of money out of our houses, and then the housing bubble pops. We spent 5 years clawing our way back to get back into normal times. Then the economy's basically back, and we come into 2020 when COVID-19 hits. In a way, these two recessions, it's kind of like they were both floods in your bathroom, but they were very different kinds. 2008 recession, it built up over time. It was kind of like your pipes having a leak that's growing mold that's slowly coming through the walls. There's a lot of damage already done. In the case of the COVID recession, it's a little different. It's not something that was building up in the walls. It's really just there's a clog in the bathtub drain, and that led the bathtub to fill up, and now there's water just pouring out all over the bathroom. It's a lot easier to fix. If you can just get the clog out of the drain, if you can just control the COVID virus, then you're in a lot better position. There are a lot of eerie similarities between the Great Recession of 2008 and the COVID recession of 2020. The first is that the groups that were struggling the most before the recession began, people of color, lower income people, those are the groups that have been hit the hardest now in the COVID recession. More than 50% of low-income households have personally experienced job loss already in this recession. Second, the longer these deep recessions last, the harder they get to fight against, because people just get weary of the approach that the government is taking. So in 2008, 2009, 2010, you saw the rise of the Occupy movement and the Tea Party movement. And now with COVID, you've got people protesting against wearing face masks, people protesting against lockdown orders and economic shutdowns. Third, at a fundamental level, fear and withdrawal caused both of these massive recessions. In 2008, it was a financial fear. In 2020, it's fear of the virus and getting infected that's leading people to withdraw from their normal economic activity. But in both cases, that fear and withdrawal is what's driving this to be as extreme as it is. So we know these two giant recessions have their similarities, but they also have their differences. The first is, this one is much bigger than the 2008 version, just in terms of intensity. Millions more people lost their jobs much more rapidly. Millions more businesses have closed down, and the hit on GDP growth is going to be a lot larger than it was at the start of the 2008 recession. A second major difference between these two giant recessions is really what caused them. The Great Recession of 2008 was caused by forces building up within the economy itself. For the COVID recession, it comes about because of something having nothing to do with the economy. A virus strikes us, and because it's this outside force, it could influence how rapidly the economy is able to come back. Third, who has been most affected by these recessions is actually completely different. In 2008, the hardest hit sectors, of course, were construction and anything related to housing, plus manufacturing. And it tended to be a heavier hit on men than on women. In 2020, the biggest hit has been on a bunch of sectors that we largely thought were recession-proof, like personal services, leisure and entertainment, healthcare, and things like that. And it's been a lot worse for women than for men. So, is the COVID recession going to be worse than the recession of 2008? If you look at the standard measures, unemployment, income, GDP growth, The warning signs are there that this could be the worst ever. But just because those signs are there does not mean that this has to be a worse recession than the recession of 2008. Economists have thought a lot about what kinds of recessions come back rapidly versus recessions that come back slowly. And what you want is a rapid rebound, what we call the V-shaped recovery, that it would go down steeply, but it will come back just as rapidly. And that V-shaped recovery is definitely better than a long U-shaped recovery or a bowl or whatever you want to call it, where we go down and then we struggle and scrap our way to come back. And then if you think about the COVID recession, we hope and maybe even expect that it could be a V-shape, that it could come back faster than a normal recession because it only began from something that was totally outside the economy and out of our control. So if you could get that thing off our back, we can come back to where we were before the recession began.